Okay, I'm just going to take a moment and go within. Whew. Welcome back to Universal Grace. I am your host, Nadine Grace. Our guest today is Crystal Harrell. I met Crystal about a year ago. Is it a year ago, Crystal?
Yes, it's been a year. It's
It's been
crazy.
a year. Wow. Wow. It's just time just flew. So I remember when you made a post that really just had me in awe because it was so inspiring. There was so much passion in it. And I just I haven't forgotten you since. So when I found you recently, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to run my show. So welcome. Thank you so much, Crystal, for being a part of Universal Grace. I cannot wait for our listeners to hear what you have to share. Your story is so powerful and it deserves millions and millions of listeners to realize that anything is possible. It's not where you're coming from, it's where you're going. So I'm going to jump right in because I know that you're pressed for time right now. So I know that you came from humble beginnings. And I know your story because I read your amazing book. I couldn't
Thank
put it down. Your book is so
you.
amazing. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But do you mind sharing your story with our listeners? You came from public housing to Ivy League to having like you totally transform your mindset. And I just want you to go into why you decided to, transform your mindset and just want to serve millions of people.
Thank you so much for having me, by the way. And it's really crazy to think that a whole year has gone by since this journey first started. That post that you saw was when I first started. So I was very unsure of myself. And I still am. There's still a lot that I need to learn. But I'll start with like a brief background of where I come from. And as you stated, that I did grow up in public housing apartments. I'm one of 10. So my mom had 10 children. And when I was growing up, my family lived in Liberty City. And if you follow Les Brown, that used to be a rough part of Miami. And it's changed now. If you go back, it's not even identical now. But that's where my family is from. So I was born in the mid-90s. And so when my mom was 6 months pregnant with me, she packed up and she left Liberty City because she said she wanted to give her children, a better chance at life. And so we moved to a very small, slow rural town in Alabama called Ozark. And it's about an hour, 45 minutes from the Florida line. But we moved there and my mom raised me and my 9 other siblings in public housing. And growing up in the South and both my parents being pastors or being ministers, I thought that that was the norm. So even though we were in disadvantaged conditions, I didn't recognize it because my parents shielded us with so much love and support. And by the time I was 11, I watched my father, die from cancer. At the time, I didn't know what cancer was, but I just knew that I could tell that something was different with his demeanor. He became, just less patient. My dad was always like a patient person. He was always active, so he was always taking us to the library, the pool. My dad was very involved in our lives, and then I just started to notice over time that that became it started to become less and less of that. And so when I was 11, I remember being at his funeral and I heard the pastor say that he had cancer. And I was just like shocked. And I was like, what the heck is cancer? So for a long time, I kind of distanced myself from that word and what it meant. But as I began to get older and I recognized that education was starting to put me into places that I didn't really know I could be in. So, for example, my dad taught me how to read and write because I was so curious and I wanted to be underneath him. My dad was my superhero, and he was my first educator. So, education was how I connected with my childhood with my father. And so after he passed away, that interest kind of peaked into a passion. And I began to become this overachiever, partly because I was trying to prove my worth. And I noticed that being an overachiever was getting me recognition. And so in a time in my childhood or my adolescence where I was feeling so disconnected and so hurt. Being an overachiever really got me the attention to feel like, people actually cared about me and I was good enough for people to stay around. So that was just like a loop in itself, because my self-worth was tied to my grades and my academic performance. By the time I got into university, so when I was a senior in high school, I ended up applying for like over 30 scholarships because I just used my story. I told the story of how I was raised, and I told the story of losing my father to cancer and what type of financial strain that put on my mother. Of, now she was, there's 6 of us in the house by the time my father passed away. So I told that story, and I told it in a way as I was telling them, like, look, I know I can't pay for my college education, but this is my ticket out of poverty. This is my ticket to the freedom that I was longing for through academics. So I applied for those scholarships and ended up getting 5 of them. And one of them was the Bill and Melinda Gates Millennium Scholarship. So that scholarship is like 10 years and it paid for my entire education. And I'm very grateful for that because it was a lot of work. It was like 10 essays you had to write. And I was up against, 25,000 other applicants. So it was very competitive, but I knew that that was my ticket. And I had faith that everything was going to work out for me because I understood that faith being raised in the church and what my parents pumped into me. So I did that and then ended up getting the scholarships to go to school. And while I was at my undergrad university at Auburn, I started studying sociology, started to learn more about human behavior, and that piqued my interest into research. And then I stayed another year and a half at Auburn to get my first master's degree, and I took a child development course. And the professor said that in research, children who go through a traumatic event and it is not addressed, it ends up manifesting itself into adult mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, and panic attacks has been associated with childhood trauma in adult populations. No one knew that I was having panic attacks. I don't even think my own mom really knew. I had my first one maybe 6 months after my dad passed away. I had a panic attack and it was the scariest thing in my life. I was just sitting in class and all of a sudden I could not breathe and I was like hyperventilating and just crying for no reason. And I did not know that was related or connected to my childhood trauma. And I ended up having a few of those throughout, my adulthood. And as I began to get into education with all the stress, and then when I learned this, I said, okay, well, if this is the case, that means I need to address the childhood trauma in order to be a healthier adult. And so I started to go to counseling. And since I started to go to counseling, that's when everything shifted for me. I also got involved into spiritual growth and personal development. So I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich was the first one I read when I was 19. And then I started following Les Brown on YouTube. And when I got the chance to actually speak to him last year and tell him my story, and the first thing out of his mouth was, do you have a book? And I didn't at the time. And that's why you have the book that you do, because Les Brown put that seed inside of me. And he told me that there was a book in my story. I lived my story. So I don't really, it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame. So because this is my story, I didn't really recognize that it was going to help someone out of a situation until my mom was like, God is using you to show others that there's always a way out. And I truly believe that.
Wow. I could just listen to you speak forever. Wow. Look at that. He planted a seed inside of you and you got into spiritual growth.
Yes.
Where in your book, I've read plenty, like I used to read 1 book a week, but now I homeschool my
Wow.
son. So now I do like 2 books a month or 3. And your book is amazing. Like
Oh my
I
gosh.
was reading another, like because first what it does, it goes into, your struggles, and then it outlines, I hope I'm giving your book justice. And then it outlines, what you had to go through, how you had to build your mindset, and
Yes.
the resilience and the persistence, and how important it is to really get to know your inner being, God,
Yes.
and make a connection, and be able to rise above, whatever difficulties we're encountering in our lives. And you
Yes.
are prime example that it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it's where you're going, and the belief
Yes.
that you have in yourself. So I know that you are, a coach.
Mhm.
And what do you see as far as mindset? What do you see in your students when you're trying to coach them to, change their mindset?
Well, I honestly just tell them the truth. There's a saying that I really love that my sister tells me. I don't know who it's quoted by, but she says, you don't know what you don't know. And so higher academia and higher education is a system. And a lot of people don't understand the system. And I don't fully understand it in its entirety, but I did ask a lot of questions and I did get help. So I went from applying to graduate school programs, and I actually failed a course when I was in undergrad. And then when I applied to graduate school, I got rejected from every single graduate school. And so I felt rejected. I felt, just like I wasn't good enough. But then something inside of me was like, ask questions. You don't know what you don't know. So if I was getting rejected, I needed to know what I needed to do in order to be a competitive applicant. And so I started asking questions. I went to faculty members, I called schools, I sat down with admissions committees, and I asked them, how do I make my application as competitive as possible? I networked, and they told me everything I needed to know. And so that led to me applying for graduate school the next time and then getting accepted into every single program that I applied to, including like getting into Yale. So there's a system, and I teach that to my students. And I find that when I actually just tell them about the system and I tell them about, things that help me become a successful student, it's like something clicks in them and they're like, oh, like little details, like, having a planner or just asking questions, going to faculty members. So a lot of students, and I've had students from all different backgrounds, like first gen low income, international students, students who were legacy students as well. So I've had a wide range of students, and I've known that the common denominator is just there's just an unawareness of what they need to do in order to be successful. And I don't blame them. I blame. I actually don't blame anyone. It's just we're the undergrad or like high school, the traditional educational system, we don't really do a good job of helping people get to the next level. And a lot of that is just providing information, and it's, teaching them about, like you said, just becoming aware of who they are. Because if you don't know why you're going to school, then it's very difficult to really commit yourself to that and be successful in higher education. So you really have to start with, why am I doing this? And what looks like the next best step for me, like what's next. And so that's what I help students figure out.
I like that. I can relate to that as well. And a lot of not only college kids, but also adults as well in
Mm,
working their jobs, because I thought all I needed to do was go to college and get a college degree and then find a good company to work, and then my life would be set. But
mm,
then I wasn't following my passion.
yes.
I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So I think that's what school is lacking, where they're
Hmm.
lacking a lot of things in terms of, just really spiritually developing students and making them aware of self, knowing
Mm,
thyself. And when I started really diving deep into personal growth and realizing that I'm more than my credentials. I
yes.
am more than my name. I'm more than my diploma on the wall. Because like you said, you made a post on Facebook that really, it spoke to me so much. And the post that you wrote was pertaining to when you graduated from I think you got your graduate degree, but it was
Yes.
one of the saddest moments of your life because
Yes.
you didn't feel fulfilled because you were tying your credentials to your worth. And I
Yes.
think that's what a lot of people are doing. And that's what I
Mhm.
did for most of my life, tying my what have I achieved? Oh, yeah, I'm this successful person because I have this, I have that, but yet I was empty inside. So
Yes.
it is so important, like what you're doing such an amazing job
Oh, thank
in
you.
starting with the younger generation, so they don't have to go through that path of unfulfillment and seeking happiness in external things like their jobs or diplomas or cars or whatever it
Yes.
is, because those things cannot give you happiness. And you also spoke about happiness is a journey, is knowing that you're already successful. That really spoke to me. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, so you actually said that a lot better than I did in my post. So, but everything that you said is definitely spot on. And I was 23 in that picture. So that was like 3 years ago. That's when my journey first started. Because, like you mentioned, I said that I was going to be happy once I graduated with my degree. And when I got my degree, I actually felt worse. And that's when I was like, well, something is wrong. I need to figure out what's wrong. And that's when I started counseling. And so I realized through the process of, you know, spiritual development and personal growth that I was facing the wrong direction. I was allowing external validation to give me internal peace, and it's the other way around. So that is the big thing. I was like, I was like, okay, I have to turn around now. And so when I did, that's when everything started to become more fulfilling. And there's still some parts of my old paradigms, because paradigms are a system of beliefs that we have about who we are and what's possible for us. So paradigms take a lifetime to build. So you're not going to necessarily break them down overnight. This is something that I'm going to have to work on for the rest of my life. And that makes me excited because there's so many books that I still want to read. There's so many books on my shelf that I still have to read. So I'm like, okay, there's a lifetime of books to read. I'm excited about this. But you really have to understand the basis of happiness. It's the process of understanding that there's nothing off limits to you, and understanding that there's nothing outside of you that's going to make you feel full. So the journey is actually turning around and facing inside and doing the work inside, and that radiates from the outside. That's how people, we look at people, we feel like, man, like their life is so easy, like everything just comes to them. Well, those people are tapped into a certain type of awareness. And if you really follow them and study them, which is what I did with Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, Oprah Winfrey, I literally just, I know, not a point of stalking, but I model them. I model their success, because if they have already figured out the system, then all I have to do is watch what they do, because I feel like you have to judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. So I want to follow trees that are bearing good fruit. And so these people come from very, very disadvantaged backgrounds, just like I did. And so I don't believe in the narrative that because of what I look like, because of where I come from, that the resources, the unlimited resources of this world, this universe, are off limits to me. I just don't believe that. And so I am following the people who also have a similar belief, and they've already become the person they were always meant to be. And so I just walk in that truth, knowing that anything that I desire was placed inside of me by my creator, or a source greater than me, God. So I walk in that truth, understanding that it's the realization of those desires and the pursuit of them that brings fulfillment, because it's being an awareness of the person that you're becoming along the way. And I think that to me is more fulfilling. And I still go back sometimes because I'm just like, oh, I got to get this degree. I gotta win. I gotta be. And it's just like, I don't know if it's just being raised with so many children, this competitive mind that I have, or just being raised in America where, we're taught to, kind of get ahead by any means necessary. So it's like, okay, so I'm trying to battle those paradigms, not battle them, but just challenge them. And that's all you have to do, is challenge them with new types of awareness and new beliefs that are actually serving. If a belief isn't serving you, you are not obligated to hold on to that.
Wow, I can listen to you speak forever. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, I know
No,
she
don't
has to
worry
go
about the time. It's okay. Please, like I feel like I can talk to you forever. Your presence is so peaceful, and it's just like I feel like
Oh, thank you so much. Yours too. So we're aligned now.
yes.
Our frequency and energy is aligned because we're vibrating on the same frequency. That's what happens when you upgrade your mindset. When you upgrade your mindset and you are on a mission, you're on a mission to serve, because you look back and you see that there are people who need us. There are people who need you. There are people who were once there are people right now I'm trying to say it right. There are people who are looking over, there are people who are calling for you and asking, like, how did you do this? I'm here struggling, I'm here suffering, I'm here because if you don't do the inside work, you're suffering. It's suffering. It really is.
Yes.
No amount of money or big houses or, flashy clothes or anything like that can bring you internal peace. Like really doing the work, and doing the work is hard. It's not easy because your ego will always come back and tell you that you're not good enough. You're not, who are you to want to serve millions of people. You're from, who are you? No. So there are people who are asking, there are people who want the change and they don't think it's possible. So being a young person like you are, and a young Black person, it is so important. The work that you're doing is so important for other young people to see, if she's doing it, I can do it too, because
Yeah.
success is for everyone. We live in a multi-dimensional universe.
Yes.
We're multi-dimensional beings having a human experience, and
Yes.
we're living, we can create whatever experience we want. It's just a matter of getting in alignment with who we really are, and getting in alignment is not an easy journey. It takes work, and you are doing the work, and I can see it. And I'm just so, you inspire me so much.
You inspire
Because
me. I'm like getting emotional. I'm like, I always have these emotional reactions when people are speaking truth.
yes, because I see it. I see that you're on a, like, when I was reading your book, I'm like, oh my gosh, this girl you're living your life on purpose. And there is nothing more fulfilling than reaching back and help people like yourself who they want to rise above the ashes. They want to be able to, have a fulfilled life, but they just don't know. They don't know the right way. They don't know the right route, but you're doing it. And living a life of passion is just a life on purpose. To me, is the most fulfilling. And can you speak to that? Like, just really, what does your morning routine looks like? Because, I read your posts on Facebook and they're just so inspiring. And I'm like, this girl must wake up with passion, which I know you do. So what is it? What does your day look like? How do you start your day?
Well, it's interesting because I am actually still trying to establish a strong morning routine. So I was living in Bali earlier this year for about 5.5 months. And there it was so easy for me to establish a morning routine because it was just different. It's hard to explain. But I will say that like I saw a different part of myself. I saw the part of myself that could wake up at a certain time every day and do something that was fulfilling. But now that I'm back in the States and I'm back in my old environment, I have old triggers, right? So I'm still dealing with those, as well as trying to finish a degree, which I know it's not going to make me smarter. I know it doesn't add anything to my self-worth, but it's what it represents for me. And what it represents is completion. And if I want to preach, know your truth, follow through with your goals, have vision, and live a life that is purposeful, then I have to complete something that I once prayed and asked God for, because this is my passion. And I do have several passions, as you'll probably like, as you read throughout the book, it's like, there are a lot of things that I'm always interested in. But the thing is, it's like, I don't believe that it's how many hours a day you have. I believe it's what you do in the hours that you do have. So I'm naturally like, one of my C-type goals, which is what Bob Proctor talks about. It's like a goal that you want to attain that it seems like a fantasy right now. One of my goals is to be able to wake up without an alarm clock. So I want to be able to go to sleep, tell my body I want to wake up at this time, and I wake up, because I am not a morning person. At least I wasn't in the past. So I don't really see myself waking up at 5 a.m. to do stuff, but I do see myself waking up at a time that my body wants to get up in, which is not, 12 o'clock. Like, I want to wake up, like you said, with that passion, and just get to work. But a lot of it is still like, when I wake up, I still have class. I still, I'm still establishing myself as a new author, as a business owner now. So it's just like, there's a lot that I'm still learning. But I will say that on the nights that I go to sleep and I feed my mind with content that is actually fulfilling. So if I'm reading like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or I'm reading The Power of, or The Mastery of Self, or I'm consuming content on YouTube by like Bob Proctor or Les Brown, only then do I wake up in the morning with that fulfillment. But if I go to sleep and I'm watching things about what's going on in the media, and I'm consuming social media, looking at people's lives and looking at their highlight reel, thinking that they're living this fulfilling life, when in reality, you have to read between the lines. Even me, like, I know sometimes it always looks like everything is peachy and clean, but I actually like work really, 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 really hard behind the scenes. And I'm trying to get better at showing that, so that people don't have this misconstrued like type of perception about success and about what fulfillment looks like. The only difference is, when I'm working hard, it doesn't feel like work, because this is what I'm passionate about.
I love it. I love it. I know we're running out of time. Tell us
It's
about your book.
okay. The name of my book is Crystal Clear, A Journey of Self-Discovery. And I basically just talk about my journey from where I started in public housing apartments in rural Alabama to where I am now at Yale University. And I use my story as a framework to show people, like my mom said, like there's always a way out. And so I wanted to paint a picture of what it takes to get to the next step. And Les Brown actually gave me the ideas for chapter 5 and chapter 8. And chapter 5 is make the sacrifice, because there are some sacrifices you're going to have to make if you want to attain your goals. But I feel like people think sacrifices are like, I don't know. I feel like we have this negative view of sacrifices, but honestly, the biggest sacrifice is just giving up your beliefs about who you're supposed to be.
The hardest one.
Yes. So I'm just like, okay, like, and I try to paint that picture in the chapter. And then the last one is push past the barriers, because like I said, like who you are is so much greater than what is seen. It's so much greater than that. And once you understand that, like you are not you're not your background, you're not your degree, you're not any of your accolades, you're not even your race, you're not your gender. Like you have to realize who you are is so much powerful. And I think if people realize how connected we are, then that would be the biggest shift we have in humanity and society, if people just understand how connected we are and realize that what you do to others actually does happen to you in the same time that you do it. Like that's not just an old saying, that's reality.
I like that. We're all one. The law of oneness says that we're all
Yes.
one. The only thing that is separating us is the way we're thinking, is our thoughts.
Yes.
Like we're all one. It's like you said, if people just have that awareness that there is no separation, and the best thing that we can do is think good thoughts towards one another, because it's coming back, the law of cause and effect. What you do
Yes.
to one person comes right back to you.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of really just understanding that you are this powerful being that were put here for a purpose, and that
Mm.
purpose is to serve each other in whatever capacity we feel called to.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. You're doing
I feel like I could do so much more. And I'm trying to like I said, there's like some of my old paradigms coming back, because it's like every time I make a post or do a reel, like I'm just wondering, like, is this actually helping? Like even with the book, I always wonder, like, is this actually helping? Because it takes it's a lot of energy and a lot of work to produce those things. But it's like I do it because I really want to help raise the consciousness, raise the awareness of the potential we all have.
yeah.
And it's just frustrating when you feel like you're not performing at the level that you could be performing. And like I said, I think that's just some of my old paradigms,
Yeah.
and being a competitive athlete for 7 years. And so it's just like a lot of that I can see is still coming up. But that's why the work is so exciting, because I will be able to get to a place in my life where I will know when I put this out there, when I speak this, when I speak my truth, that it's definitely having an impact, because it's called the ripple effect. And so I just have to, continue to work on myself, continue to grow, because I don't know everything. I won't ever know everything. And that makes me so happy.
Yes, isn't that amazing? Continue
Yes.
learning and growing every day. You said in your book too that you weren't a fan of reading,
Oh
and
no, hated it. I hated reading. Listen.
and then once you started reading, you once you saw the effect it was having on you, you couldn't put it down.
Yes.
Same thing with me as well. I was miserable, just miserable. And I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Something, please, somebody help me. And then I realized that no one can help me. I have to help myself,
Yes.
by really turning within. And I think a lot of times when people wake up to the truth of who they are, they sometimes have to go through some level of suffering, excuse
Mm,
me, to some level of suffering to ask themselves the tough questions, like, why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? Because we're not just here to work and then die. Our
yeah.
purpose is so much more bigger than that. And you're doing such an amazing job by showing the world that it is possible, by showing the
Yeah.
world that, I am doing it. I'm just a simple girl with big visions who have
Yes.
discovered the God in me. And I'm using everything that I can to shift the vibrational frequency of the universe, to raise the
Yes.
consciousness, because we need that now more than ever.
Oh man, listen. I had to really pull away last night because I was in deep with the politics and the
Oh no.
media, and
Oh
I was just
Lord.
like, what is happening? Because like I'm so like I study public health. This is what I've dedicated my entire life to: public health and a healthy population. So it's just like this is something that's in the media. So it's I understand that me consuming that information isn't helping me. And by default, it isn't helping anyone else. So I'm trying to focus on being the opposite of what that is. So if we see darkness, then we must focus on the light. And the light is internal. So it's just like everything that I do, I try to remember that. And I have a business coach, John Tellerico, and he works with Les Brown and Power Voice, and so he's done like a lot of work and worked with a lot of people on shifting those limiting beliefs. And so like this morning I had a call with him, and he was just like, focus, like stay focused on the vision. But it's like it's so many things trying to pull your attention. So I'm like, oh.
Crystal, I'm sure you can see me with my hands up. Okay. I completely agree. I have a mentor as well. His name is Jonathan England, and he always tells us, focus on the light within.
Mm.
Love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is an illusion.
That gave me chills. So I know
Yes. And
it's
I have to keep reminding myself that because when you're aware, you're able to see through the veils of the illusion.
yes.
And you're able to see exactly what's going on. And you just want to say, stop it already. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Yes.
not right. And but when you're doing that, you're giving them your energy that's what they want. That's what the
Oh my
media
gosh.
wants. And we all know that the media is not here to serve us. We all know that the media is here to completely plant fear within us,
It's
within the
fear.
world, to pull us
Yes.
away from our truth. But the sad thing about it, a lot of people don't know that. So I
Mm,
tell myself all the time, I cannot be part of that population who
you're
is
right.
sucked in with fear. So I constantly remind myself, love is the only thing that's real.
Mm.
Everything else is an illusion. Everything is perfect.
That's hitting here, like
Yes.
so
Because we
strongly.
have to be that lighthouse.
Mm.
The world needs us. We have to be that lighthouse. There are people waiting for us to change their lives, waiting for us to help them remember the powerful, magnificent being that they are. They just have forgotten. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I found myself doing that last week, and I was like, oh no, I'm not going back there. I
Oh
don't
my
even watch
God.
TV. I get
Me
my news when
either.
I not only go on Facebook because of my business. And when I go on Facebook, there are times where you want to see what's going on. And then you see
Yes.
things. I'm like, oh, let me get off of it. But I completely understand where you're coming from, Crystal. You're having a human experience. It's going to happen.
Okay.
You're still cutting down paradigm that does not serve you. And that's why it's so important to go back to
Yeah.
the knowing that we're the light workers, we're the light beings who came here. We all came here with a purpose, but some of
Yeah.
us some people just don't remember. And
Yes.
it's okay, but we have to be the ones who remind and shine the light and be the change we want to see in the world.
Yes, that's so true. I love that. I feel so like I just feel so like understood, like in your presence. Like it's just crazy because you always feel like you're the only one going through something. And so everything that you said was resonating so much with me. Like I felt it because like it's true. And I know that it's just like even the people who are doing the light work, even they forget sometimes. And that's what's crazy because it's like it's going to be constant repetition of just remembering, of just understanding and walking in your truth. I think it's kind of like maintenance on a car. Like you always go, you have to maintain the health of your car. You have to go get those oil changes. You have to make sure that the tires are smooth and not bald. Like, and I feel like that's what you have to do when you're on this path of, when you're on a journey of self-discovery and a path of just, figuring out or remembering who you are. So that you're always going to have to maintain. You're always going to have to remember, like,
It's
that
never
there's
going
still
to go
work.
away.
Yeah.
It's never going
But
to go away.
I feel like that scares people.
Yes.
but it's not scary. Like it's the beauty in it, because it's like you're going to different levels of a video game. Like, yes, you make it to the next level, and then you make it to this next level, and it's just like you develop a sense of confidence. Like, being in this space, I would not have been as confident if it wasn't for everything that I went through in the past, that I look back and I saw, well, that didn't kill me. It actually helped me. Even the things that I didn't think were serving me, like certain people walking out of my life, or losing my parent, even, like, that was actually a point that was helping me get to the person that you see
Mm.
today. And I understand the process of, like, knowing that my father is still with me. Like, whatever he was, I am. And it's the same thing with our universal God, with Christ. It's like, whatever he is, we are also.
Mhm.
So I just really believe that when you're walking in your truth, and it's exciting, honestly, because then you meet people like yourself who are also aligned, and you have amazing conversations. It feels like you're flying, and you have these serendipitous moments where people honestly just give you exactly what you need, even what you don't think you need. Like, you shake hands and you meet some of the most amazing people when
Yes.
you are aligned.
Yes, I have chills going through my body when you are rising up that consciousness, that consciousness level, and you're cleaning up the inside, and your vibration is, your frequency is getting higher. You then, the universe just opens up,
Yes.
especially when you're walking in purpose.
Yes.
Everything comes, and you just trust. If you
Yes.
go through any obstacles or challenges, you know that you're well taken care of. Isn't that beautiful? That's a
Yes.
beautiful, beautiful space to be in.
And it feels good, and
It
people see
feels
it, and you
good.
see it too. Like, when you look at
Yes.
yourself, you're like, oh, like, I'm so different than what I used to be a year ago.
Oh, yes,
You know, and
yes, yes.
that's the beautiful part in it, because you're just like, wow, like, now I have this overabundance of grace and this overabundance of peace. It's nothing to you to give that away. It's nothing. This work that I've been doing since last year is the most fulfilling work I've ever done in all the years that I've been in school, for these eight and a
Mm,
half years. Writing that book was the biggest thing, like the biggest, like the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done, because
wow.
that wasn't for me. That was for someone else. I know the story. I've lived it. I am living it. So I have my story, but using that story to serve others was the biggest thing that I think I've ever had to do. And it was very, very, very difficult, but it was the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done.
Wow. And your book, Crystal Clear, A Journey to Self-Discovery, is
Mm.
one of the best. I've read thousands of books.
Please don't say it. Like, don't, Nadine.
I am telling you, your book is on point because you poured your heart into it. You can read that book over and over again and literally change your life if you apply
Oh my
everything.
God.
Like you said, you can get all the information you want, but if you don't apply what you're learning, then it's not going to work. Your
Yes.
book is so amazing. You can
Oh
tell
my
that
God.
it wasn't, it was, oof, it was just so it's so authentic and caring and loving, and just it's a gem of a book. And I would encourage anyone who's seeking fulfillment, who's seeking awareness of self and wanting to know thyself and know that purpose and just wanting to know who they are and why they're here, to check that book out. It's called Crystal Clear, A Journey to Self-Discovery. It's on Amazon and it is a must read. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being here, Crystal.
Thank
I
you so
know that I'm going to
much.
ask you to come back again.
Please, I was just thinking the same thing. I was like, is it too early to ask if I could come back?
Not at all.
So
I
I'm just like, I'm
am
gonna
gonna.
block out the rest of my schedule and just be like, look, let's just talk. Like, this is so amazing. And these
Yes,
conversations, like, need to
yes.
be had.
It,
So
yes, right. Like it really, like when you're on purpose and you're really genuinely on purpose and want God, you want God's vision to come through you. I say to God every day, not my will,
but
let
your
your
will.
will,
Amen.
your will, Lord. And when you are on purpose and you truly, genuinely care about humanity, knowing that we're all one, and you can switch a button just like that and change your internal state if you're willing to do the work.
Yes.
It sets you on fire to really let the world know that anything is possible. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you. This
so
is such an
much.
amazing space, Nadine. I really, really, really appreciate this. And this is going to set me up for the rest of the month, honestly. Like,
Oh,
whatever I was watching last night, and like, no type of like effect on me, because I understand the truth, and everything that you said to me in this conversation is confirmation.
we are the light workers. And so we have to maintain our inner peace if we really want to create the best change for this world. So I understand that now after this conversation more than ever.
Yes, Crystal, we all fall back sometimes, but then we come right back to the truth, because once you have awakened, you can never go back.
No, it's like walking through like doors, like, and it closes behind you. There's no way you won't even want to. That's the thing. Like
No.
after you experience the abundance of like what is actually around you, and you've walked in this type of space, it's like seeing life in HD. No more will you wake up and feel like, oh, I got to do this because this is bad. I got to prove this. I got to get this, and this is how I'm going to be happy. There's no more of that, and that is the beautiful thing. Like you can go anywhere in this world and have the same level of inner peace. It is so amazing.
Yes. Thank you. I know you have class. I keep watching the time.
Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
really
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
appreciate
giving
this.
you a virtual hug. Virtual
Thank
hug.
you.
Thank you so much, Crystal. It was a pleasure having you on Universal Grace.
Thank
Like I said, I'm sure I'm going to ask you to come back again,
Please.
probably early next year, but you're going to come back again because I
Yes.
like your energy. I like your message. I just love everything about you. So I
Thank
don't want you
you.
to be late. So you have a wonderful rest of
Okay.
your day.
You too. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad I found that group. If it wasn't for my coach, John, I would not have. So
Yes, me too. If it wasn't for a friend of mine, I wouldn't have found it. And I'm scrolling through, I'm like, Crystal, go, message. But I know you got to go. Bye.
Oh, it's okay. I definitely will be back. I'm excited because I love this so much. Thank you.
Me too. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.